All right, welcome to an episode of the Contrarian Hour. This is a bit of a special one because I had a tooth extracted earlier, so I may be under the influence of Vicodin prescription, of course. But hey, it's all the better.
Wow.
So
The hypocrisy. You lambast weed the previous episode, and here you are popping pills, dude.
I
That's
know I spend a
It's not
whole
good.
episode castigating weed users and then say, now let me record myself on prescription drugs. Notice I had nothing to say about those. So, there's nothing quite wrong there. But before we get going, Tyson, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's
Yeah?
it's getting close to winter time. I hate winter so much, man. I wish it was just permanently spring. Not too hot, not too cold, just in between. You know?
I'm supposed to believe that's how it works, where it's about to be summertime here, but over there, it's winter.
Yeah, it's a concept that requires a IQ of over 100. So
So the Earth is
a little bit.
spinning all the time, but because you're over there, it's still gonna remain wintertime.
Yes, because of the tilt. My
Okay,
friend.
and it also stays at a constant tilt that makes sure you're just in the winter and I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
what you want to say
I'm
that?
just supposed to believe that, which is fine, but I'm excited for your wintertime. I was just taken off guard for a second because you said, oh, it's going to be winter soon. I was like, oh, I thought he was going to say he was gearing up for summer because I'm gearing up for summer.
Summer just came and went. It was too. Man, summer in New Zealand. It's one of those summers where it's just a bit too hot and it just starts to annoy you. And then when it's wintertime, it just goes hard. It's fucking cold, dude. My fucking
It lays
finger
in
freezing.
there.
Yeah.
I hate to get into the season conversation because it is typical, but I'll say that, summer never really hits me too hard because I'm not in an area like Florida, which I hear you can't even touch your door handle. It's in Arizona
Really?
too.
Damn.
Yeah, because it's that hot. I can't handle that. But what I don't like is that my favorite season is the fall, and it's 2 weeks. Fall is 2 weeks. You get the leaves on the ground, you get Halloween, and then that's it. By the time you're getting to Thanksgiving, it's already winter, and I hate that. And I don't even mind winter that much because I do like to go snowboarding, and I don't mind a little bit of the nippy cold because it keeps you honest as a person. But spring's the worst one. I can't stand the
No.
way that spring feels.
No,
It's
no.
terrible, terrible season.
You
Bottom
know,
floor.
I was gonna give you an olive branch and say, you know what? Despite us being on the opposite sides of the weather spectrum, both of us have similarities. Like in both spring and fall, you can just go outside with a t-shirt on and jeans. You don't need a jacket in either one. So
Quite the same.
that's a common bridge, but you burnt it, so it's fine.
Spring is allergies, mugginess, bees start, showing up.
Allergies.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be an American phenomenon due to our Puritan inbreeding. I'm not sure. But no, I'm all right myself. Now I know how you're doing. But yeah, I got that tooth extracted today. And there's something really interesting that happens that I forgot about is when you put this, they give you, a little gauze to put in your mouth to hold the blood in while it bleeds after you get the tooth extracted. And when that's done, you'll get this little tooth-sized packet of blood, really. It's a congealed blood clot
Ugh,
that's
what the
in your
fuck?
mouth that falls out. Yeah. So you can hold it in your hand. I threw it out about a half hour ago. So I'm mouth blood clot free, which is incredible.
Do you like the taste of your own blood?
I love blood in general. I like it in a
But
lot
do you like
of
the
different
taste
ways.
of it though?
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Mm-hmm.
You know,
When I'm bleeding, I'll lick it up. I'll lap
Yeah,
it up. I wish I were a
when
vampire, really.
when I was a kid, I didn't mind it. It was like it's like a nice kind of like salty kind of thing, you know.
I never think about it as sustenance. I think I like seeing it because it excites me. You don't typically see blood in your day-to-day life.
Dude,
and when you
this
do, it's
might-
like, ooh, makes you feel
This
human,
might explain a lot. And I wonder if you had this as well. But when I was a kid, I used to love the smell of fucking car exhaust. Like it was
car exhaust. That's so funny.
You know, like when you toast something in the oven and it's like it's getting to the point where like, oh, like, I can smell the roast chicken. It's like nearly done. that's what car exhaust smelled for me, So
Your parents would be starting up the car and you'd be behind it, just giving a good sniff.
no, just if I'm walking past the street as a kid and a fucking massive truck just rolls past, I'm like, that's a nice dub.
Pungent. Isn't that delightful? Okay, actually, that might kind of play into our first topic here that you've brought to the table. And I have a bit to say about this as well. And I'm not sure what direction you're trying to go in, but this is a big one to tackle. So this is a main event kind of issue. I'm not sure how political we'll get. I love when we try to get scientific because I don't even have basic knowledge of how the earth moves or the geography of the country that I live in. But the subject you're bringing to the table is climate change. So the Contrarians tackle climate change. What are you trying to say here? What are you trying to say?
So this is actually a 2-part Netflix series.
Okay.
But part 1, I'll start by I was doing some research on the past week on climate change, because I so many people I've come across, they just accept it as written fact. Like it's been proven beyond the shadow of doubt. So I'm like, okay, is it really that proven? So I did some research, right? And I came across all this information. Something really interesting popped out. Dude, do you know about ice cores and how they work?
I do, and I think I know the direction that you're going in. So yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, for you to get temperature readings, like 1 million years ago or 2 million years ago, you would drill down these extremely deep wells, not wells, like holes in the Arctic or Antarctic, and take out these ice cores. And the compositional layers of each layer of ice can tell you like what the atmosphere was like, what the temperature of that atmosphere was like, and
which is ridiculous, by the way. There's no way that's true. But sorry, keep going.
I believe it. I mean,
okay.
Look at how minute all the stuff is. It's reasonable to assume that's true. But there was these readings that showed that for like the past 2 million years of Earth's history, ice ages were cyclical. Ice ages would spread out and cover the entire of North America and Asia with ice. So imagine like fucking like East Asia just flooded with ice. Imagine the whole of North America just covered in ice.
Not only that, Tyson.
Yeah, right now we're at the tail end of that. So technically, we're still in an ice age. We're just at the tail end of an ice age, right? So they call it like an interglacial period. So I'm going to get a little bit technical here, but so you know how the Earth orbits the sun, right?
Barely, but yes.
You're going to have to assume that the Earth orbits the sun for this one, but people might assume that the orbit is perfectly circular, but it's not. It's actually very slightly oval shaped. And how oval, like the ovalness of the orbit changes dynamically over time. Like you would have a period where it was 1% more oval, and then another 100,000 years where it was like 3% more oval. During periods where the orbit of the Earth is more oval than not, it creates a period where the Earth gets less radiation from the sun, and this period lasts for about 100,000 years. So this dynamically shifting period doesn't also apply to just the Earth's orbit, right? But it also applies to the Earth's fucking tilt. So as you know, the Earth is on a tilt. That's how it gets the seasons and all that, right? It rotates on a tilt. But the tilt is also, it dynamically shifts over time. And it also corresponds with this 100,000 year like oval structure. So if you combine these two factors, right, and you plot them on a time scale of the last 900,000 years, every single ice age this planet has ever experienced coincides with these two fucking factors peaking. So these two factors, they create a feedback loop that results in extremely rapid melting of the ice caps of the poles, creates a rise in sea levels, and it releases the trapped methane gas, which speeds up the fucking greenhouse effect. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but This seems to me like a far more reasonable fucking explanation for climate change than, oh, late exhaust from late cars is warming up the late atmosphere. Dude, the thing that pisses me off so much about that is that if you look at these fucking charts for climate change, they always have this stupid fucking chart where it goes back to like, oh, it goes back to like the pyramid time 3,000 years ago, and says, oh, look how there's a spike as soon as human industrialization started. It's like, okay, why are you going 3,000 years? Why don't you go back 200,000? Why don't you go back 2 million years and see the fucking cycles there? You know.
So, just to pump the brakes on that for a second, is that's the infamous hockey stick chart that was popularized by Al Gore. And I'm not a statistician, I'm not a scientist, but I do know, just from what I've looked at in regards to that chart itself, is that they use different methods of measurement for the that's before you even get to what you said, where it's using a really short, irrelevant time period. You're supposed to go longer than that. But even before you get to that part, we use completely different styles of measurement before on the flat part of the graph. Then we just happened to start using a different one that showed that spike. So we weren't even using the right methods of measurement for that graph itself. It doesn't even remain consistent in the scientific method used to do that. So yeah, it creates a shocking graph effect that makes it look like the exact cause of our situation is from the Industrial Revolution, which is ridiculous. So
yeah, and dude, I remember this one time I was in university, right? And this guy I was sitting next to in a lecture, he was talking to me like, "Yeah, man, you should really just join my conservation club. We talk about climate change and all that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't buy it." And he was like so fucking taken aback.
He's beside himself.
He was literally beside himself. And then I showed him these ice core readings. And he glanced at them. This pissed me off so much, right? I showed it to him on his phone. He glanced at them for 15 seconds. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's debunked." It's like, okay. So it took you 15 seconds to debunk all of this. I'm sorry. You must be so fucking smart to do that. I didn't realize I was sitting next to fucking the next version of Einstein, okay?
Yeah, I think a lot of the discussion, especially since it's been mostly politicized, which means it's not even worth talking about a lot of the time, is people love to say the difference between anthropogenic global warming and natural warming of the Earth. So anthropogenic global warming is obviously global warming that humans are responsible for, and we're the reason that it's happening. And then the alternative to that is the Earth's just functioning as it would, regardless of humans' impact on it or not, which the latter is something that I lean more towards. But I think anthropogenic global warming obviously lends to more grant money. It moves us to a political angle, and honestly there's a huge existential angle that's really been fostered not only on our generation but the ones after ours. It's really the new religion, and it's a useful one too for control. If you notice that there's an uptick in nihilism in general over the last, I don't know, 20 30 years after this has been popularized, because people are inculcated from an early age to think that, well, the world's going to end in 100 years anyways. And that's something that they can focus on and drive towards instead of, let's say, a god, a community, something like that. So it's a really useful tool, and something that was pointed out, that certain event that you may or may not have had to get a procedure done for that happened between 2020 and towards the end of 2021, maybe early 2022. That was the replacement for global warming for a few years. That was the new existential threat. Notice how we didn't talk about global warming in that time span. It suddenly wasn't this life-ending issue. But now it's back in the spotlight. You know what is over. So we're talking about it again. They go back to old reliable. You know what I mean? So yeah, I and you reminded me of something when you were talking about it was, and I might be saying this the wrong way, but it's kind of a chicken or the egg analogy, where some say that because of our CO2 emissions, it's causing a rise in heat on the Earth, or it's destroying our ozone layer, which I barely even know what that means or how you would even quantify that. But the other argument is that it's actually the reverse, is that there's a limit or change to CO2 emissions based off the temperature of the Earth, which is natural, because you can actually see a relationship between the two, CO2 emissions and warming of the Earth. But we found, or at least it's been shown in some studies, but that CO2 emission follows the heat signature, not the heat signature following the CO2 emission. And what you said about the entire Earth being covered in, what was it, in ice, or certain areas being covered in ice?
The whole of Asia and North America was covered in ice. So you could theoretically walk from Asia to America on this ice sheet. Yeah.
So something that I was listening to before that said there used to be, or no, it might have been a book I read on this subject a long time ago, long enough for me to forget most of it. But there was an overabundance of CO2. Is it a bad thing? Apparently there was a time in our Earth's history where the Sahara Desert was a jungle. It was covered in greens and grass and garden. Well, not garden implies, sorry. The Nephilim were tending to their gardens in the Sahara Desert there. We'll say that. But there were time periods where, because of CO2 emissions, we had a utopia, a plant utopia on this Earth. And I'm supposed to say that's a bad thing? No, I need that to be the Sahara Desert because it just so happens to fit this one moment in time where humans exist for supposedly what? The last... even millions of years is small in the scope of our Earth's time span, according to some. So yeah, I think that people immediately jumping to CO2 bad, and what I read was trying to put an even bigger argument together that fossil fuel was actually good for the air because the CO2 emissions were a net positive because it creates... I know, right? I know. Well, first off, I barely believe fossil fuels exist. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, I found this fossil. Now I can make gas from it. Thought no one ever.
So hold up. You finna tell me you found a dinosaur and you're going to put that in your Ford Chrysler? Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, their first thought was, we need to put this in a GMC Terrain immediately. What was a little fossil-looking Pokemon that was kind of a squid? It was called like Omarite.
I think you mean a trilobite, right?
Well, I'm thinking of a Pokemon. You're talking about a real thing. So,
oh, okay.
So you're going in the scientific direction, which I can appreciate. But I think mainly, yeah, what I was winding back to is that we're supposed to think that CO2 emissions are just this terrible, evil practice that we inflict upon our planet when CO2 isn't even bad. Trees, if CO2 were bad, why would trees emit them? You know, why would the planet at which we're on be emitting CO2 more than human beings do by an exponential amount? How is that bad when we do a little bit more of it? I don't think so. I don't
know if I can get on board with CO2 is good, but it definitely is like natural. You know, look at like the fucking CO2 charts going back a couple 100,000 years from those ice cores. Dude, it's cyclical as well. Like, it goes up and down. Do these people expect the Earth to be like some fucking permanently encapsulated environment when nothing changes? Yeah, like, of course it's going to change. And, you know, this sort of like leads me to my part 2, where, you know, I thought, okay, well, either way, even if like leftists or these people were right and man-made global warming is happening, or even if we're right and it's just a natural process, I mean, regardless, it's still going to happen, right? And they're going to
we're just going to stop doing all of this? You know, we're going to stop.
And that got me to think about, you know, politics and the environment in general. And, you know, I think it's time for conservatives to create a parallel vision to the leftist vision of climate change. So I want you to think back 20 to 30 years ago and compare the amount of garbage and trash that we had in the West, you know, back then versus now. You know, I feel like it's way fucking dirtier now. And
that's disgusting.
Even if it's not true, even if you pull up a source that says, actually, that isn't true, We have more trash now. Even if you pull that up, it feels so much spiritually dirtier than 30 years ago. And I feel like
it's literally dirtier.
Yeah, and I feel like this needs to be heavily offset by a cleansing of the physical world, right? So that said, I cannot get on board with the current leftist, climate change. Ooh, like cars are changing the world. And here's why. That movement, those people are fundamentally anti-natalist. Their grand solutions are either, make not having children the norm, or tax the ever-loving shit out of the working class and throw it to some fucking obscure, retarded carbon tax scheme. Like, I'm sorry, but that doesn't fucking appeal to me. I like families. I think having children is a good thing. Also, I'm not convinced that these fucking carbon taxes even do anything.
Of course they don't.
There needs to be a parallel vision of environmentalism for the right wing. And I think I know what it should be. So tell me if this appeals to you, right? The core principle for this new vision shouldn't be anti-climate change, which, personally I think is shaky at best, but instead it should be anti-pollution. Pollution is actually something tangible. You can see the filth and grime on the streets. You can see the garbage being thrown into the fucking ocean, and you can see the toxic smoke that becomes smog in cities. Like, we should be fucking rallying against that. I would happily pay more tax if I could tangibly see it funding like automated street cleaners or ocean cleanup vessels. And another thing I want to touch on is this mentality that I've started to feel from conservatives where, because in America and the rest of the West, they've tied themselves to these intangible carbon tax schemes. They start to feel as if changing the environment isn't really possible due to like the sheer force of civilization. They might say, well, there's 8 billion people. How much change can you really enact? And I think that's the wrong mentality to have. And you can kind of tell it's not true by looking at China, right? So I'm sure if you remember in the early 2000s, like 2004, 2008, everyone was talking about smog and how polluted China was. You saw these images of like,
oh yeah,
Beijing,
you couldn't even see the sunrise. They would do a fake sunrise on a screen. Yeah,
you saw these images of the cities covered in like this fucking filthy gray mist that came from their factories. Dude, if you fast forward to now, 2024, China's done like a nearly a
completely mitigated it.
180 on this. Since the Beijing Olympics in 2008, they've planted like 35 billion trees. They've imposed like these extremely harsh regulations on factories that dump waste. And the smog that I just mentioned, hanging over their cities 20 years ago, it's literally all gone. If you pull up a street video of Shanghai on YouTube, dude, these streets look fucking nice, and you can see the sky like really clearly.
And that doesn't have to do with carbon tax credits. That has to do with action.
They actually overhauled the environment because they pursued tangible goals. Can you imagine if they didn't do any of that and they just threw their cash at some fucking retarded like carbon tax plan? Literally nothing would have changed.
Well, you can see the end point of what those carbon tax credits lead to, and that was rioting in Paris, which ironically was, well, coincidentally, not ironically, people use that term wrong. Well, I guess it is ironic in this case. That was where the Paris Climate Accords happened, and I think it was talked about. I think it was one of the few good things Trump did before he became a robot of Ivanka and Jared was he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords at the recommendation of Bannon and everyone. So the only other country to not do this is Montenegro or something. I thought that was hilarious. But you do see the end product of these tax credits. So I actually have a few thoughts on this. But the first one is, Tyson, is that something that used to be considered left-leaning, aside from the Boy Scouts, which are no longer called the Boy Scouts, by the way, is being physically, environmentally conscious. 30 to 40 years ago, there was a commercial here that had an extreme influence on public discussion as far as environmentalism went. And it was an Indian man on the side of the road, so trying to show this native spirit, holistically emerging from the land in the Americas. He's on the side of the highway and someone drives by and throws fast food on the side of the road. Just some fucking legend in, an old Mustang. I don't even know. Like throws, and he just drives by, and the Indian man looks down at it, and then he looks up, and the camera zooms in on his face, and you just see a single tear roll down his eyes. Apparently, boomers lost their minds over this commercial. It just gave them like extreme existential dread over the impact they were having on the planet. It? No, it made them feel a tinge in their heart for once in their lives.
Good.
It was effective for some reason, even though at that time it was considered left-leaning to care about something like that. What I'm saying is that there's a place in people's hearts to care about the environment around them. You don't need to disingenuously frame it as Native American man crying. You can say, this is the world around you of which you will live and your kids live. And by the way, I thought that was a good point you made about the antinatalism, where they say, I don't want to bring a child into this world because of global warming.
It's repulsive.
But also, we need to keep this planet alive and fight global warming. It's I don't think that's really how it goes. They don't want to take honest steps forward to fix it, and that's how you know they're not serious, because carbon tax credits don't do anything. If you want to do something to fight bad, quote unquote, CO2 emissions, you plant trees. You plant tons of trees, you plant greenery, and you have a clean, functioning environment. But we're not at that point right now, especially in my country. If you walk around, it's dirty. It's disgusting when you, especially any urban area, but even in the suburbs, when you go to, let's just say retail or a Main Street or a downtown, it's despicable. People are just a lot more apt to litter. I think there should be more trash cans on sidewalks, maybe.
Absolutely.
I sound like I'm Mother Gaia, but everything I'm saying now is kind of tying into a main point that I was going to make earlier on. It's the first thing I think of when people bring up global warming. Is something my dad said it years and years, and I don't think he even believes this anymore, but I believe it because I thought it was a good point, and it kind of steered me in my direction. It was kind of a signpost to how I would approach this topic later in life, is that this earth that God has created and put us on, we should not have the arrogance as man to think that we can be the end of it or that we control it. We can't control nature and God's creation. Just because we're driving around Ford Escapes and GMC Terrains, that means that this planet, which God has created for us, is going to be destroyed. It's malleable. It's flexible.
Yeah.
It's the template on which humanity's history is being painted on. And if you think it's going to end because we've made some innovations, then I disagree.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
think
a good point.
it's
like if you think humans are just the ultimate masters of the earth, why wouldn't you throw your fucking garbage on the floor? Like, humans are the masters, so they're just going to clean up. But
anyway, also, they like to say that we're insignificant little specks on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
But also, we seem to impact it. So pay us more taxes and carbon credits. But when you talk about the dichotomy between the left and the right on this, the right does themselves no favors. What they like to do is, the one guy bringing a snowball onto the Senate floor or the House floor, and you said, "How's global warming real if I'm holding snow right now?" Their favorite thing to do, the ineffective right, is they'll tweet something, just walked out on a nice, rainy day. So much for glable warming. It's like, what are you doing? So because it rains today and also, wherever you are, then come on, man, you're not doing. You don't make me want to be on the same team as you. It's so stupid. You sound so stupid.
It brings into call like this fucking larger point of, the right really needs to abandon this fucking stupid embrace of idiocracy. They embrace being dumb as like, oh, get her done, that kind of like dumb shit. Like I remember
the cable guy.
I remember like fucking watching this video, right, where there was this like leftist climate change protest, and then this fucking roided out Trump supporter just drove his dumb fucking truck past it, and he was like spewing black smoke, and he was trying to pass that off as an own, like epic own of these left approach. It's like, I don't want to smell your fucking car smoke. You should be killed for that. You should be fucking hung for that. Like, dude.
Well, it's not that big a deal. But I do agree with you because that ignorance carries into everything else. They like to complain how they're not the focal point in academia, well, you think the arts are stupid. You think higher thought in general is stupid. If it's not a STEM degree, you think it's stupid. So I hate to break it to you, but STEM aren't the cultural drivers that encircle most of society and how we function. They really just give us the ability to do more in life. They don't give us the drive to create and strive further as man. So when you're angry that conservatives aren't in control of certain faculties, mainly everything, Hollywood, academia, even finance, they can't even get a grip on that, or corporations. I thought that's what they were supposed to be good at. They're not even in power positions there either. Who do you have? Like Peter Thiel or some random piece, some guy. That's
because the fucking conservative endgame these days is I just want to make my money and ride off into the sunset in the fucking wilderness. It's like, I'm sorry, but I want to live in a city. I like amenities. I like being in a civilization, and I like being part of culture. Okay?
Yeah.
If you want to fuck off and do your thing, fine. But don't complain when you don't control any of that in the future,
Oh, I moved into a duplex in the middle of Ohio. Why is culture changing around me? Oh, maybe because you live in the middle of nowhere, have zero influence on any of the world around you. And you recommended that every conservative did that as well. What if you infiltrated college? Infiltrated the wrong word. What if you, I don't know, attacked them, went head on? You went to these universities, you filled them with people like you challenged the thoughts in those spaces, or tried to put people in positions in those places. But instead, it's like, no, everyone who goes to college, they're a bunch of students. You know what you should be doing? You should be learning woodwork, being a carpenter. It's just, okay. Well, even if that is true, what happens when that industry gets saturated because you told everyone to go be fucking carpenters and plumbers? So
also,
then what happens
another
after
point
that?
I saw, right?
We have nothing.
Another point I saw is like this fucking push towards trades and this diversion away from like entrepreneurship or fucking like finance and all that stuff. A plumber makes good money. He makes like $100,000, I would assume, but he will never
not all the time.
He will never amount to anything as influential as someone on Wall Street can do. So if you want to change shit, you need to be in an industry that can scale itself to that fucking level. Like take for example this leftist Wall Street billionaire Bill Ackman. He's funding like all this leftist stuff. You think you think that like a fucking union of plumbers has even a union of them has enough as much influence as Bill Ackman? There's no way in hell.
The union leaders are left leaning anyways.
Exactly. So it's a fucking lose-lose.
I know. So yes, I think it's a good point, because plumbers, they don't influence culture, but for some reason we think in telling people to go in the industries and chase the money, it'll somehow change after that. And they're just like, well, women can't work plumbing jobs, so we get plumbing jobs. It's just like, well, what are you even doing? What's even going on? Like, I don't even know what we're even talking about. It's like, we built the world around you. It's like, okay, well, keep building my bathroom then. Go on, little bro. I'm just gonna go send 3 emails a day for a living. What do you want me to do about that? So that's your fault. But no, they get to by the way, they get to complain to me about that they pursued that at the behest of others, and that's my fault somehow. So they need me to feel bad that they're barely making 6 figures and their knees are already busted and they have to retire by the time they're 50, or else they might die from being overworked. So, but that's my fault. That's my fault that they do that. So they are, blue collar workers are the ultimate martyrs. It's so infuriating. You want to talk? Yeah.
I had an interesting fact, and maybe it's a point that both sides can rally against, and I'm really not trying to say this in in any racial way or anything like bigoted way, but we really need, like, both the left and the right, if we can agree on climate change, we really need to do something about India, because funny fact, but like the top 100 most polluted cities in the planet, 83 of them are in India, dude, and they contribute so much of the plastic waste to the ocean.
That two things. That's why the carbon emissions conversation is stupid. You're never going to get all countries to agree on it. And I don't want to say it's an avenue to globalism. It's like, yeah, they want everyone to, side on this one issue, because then we'll have, a collectivist world group of countries that are all centrally controlled through climate change. I don't believe anything like that, but I don't think there will ever be a way to ensure that emissions are in check over the entire planet. But my second point, just to kind of reel it back a little bit, and I thought about this earlier, I did think it was funny that and I said this about that kid who asked a really stupid question to George Lucas. He gets a chance to talk to George Lucas, and he says, "What are you going to do about black people?" And so, shut the fuck up. Like, you have a chance to ask George Lucas something, and you have to talk about the color of your skin. Go look at your skin in the fucking mirror if you want to talk about it. It's not that big a deal. Oh my God, ask George Lucas literally anything else. So there was this kid before the first Republican presidential debate where the first question, I guess, was, I don't think Vivek knew the question was coming to him first, or maybe he did. But the kid gets on this teleprompter screen. He says, "What's the conservative answer to global warming, and how are we going to be able to combat it?" So you're a kid who's 20 years old who gets to ask the first question at one of the most interesting primary debates and most watched ones in history. And you ask about global warming? Not all the other issues that are at the forefront of the conservative mind. And Vivek's, I don't remember his exact answer, because obviously he gave one that needed to please everyone, or just the sect he was going after at that moment before he probably changed his mind a week later. But he essentially said, "I don't really believe in that." So he made the kid look like an idiot in his answer,
he
which
did
is
say that.
great.
He's like, "Yeah, I don't buy it." Which
and then somebody like, "Ooh," it was like, good. Start talking like that. Start communicating like that, because it works. It's effective. That's why I say, I got really into the space that you're now in, and I think there's value in what you're doing and being, look at the ice cores. Is it CO2 this or that? What are the different ice ages? I would rather just go with the reasoning. Well, you can marry the two, I'd assume, because the data it really can go both ways, which automatically disproves that it's only going one way. So it is not quote unquote settled science, if science is ever truly settled. But, where was I going with that? What was I talking about? Sorry, the drugs were kicking in. I was talking about Vivek, wasn't I?
Yeah, Vivek, and how he like people should emulate, like, giving his response more.
Oh, yeah. You could talk about everything that from a scientific perspective, but also when you come at it with, it's not even a religious one. It's just say, "I don't believe man can affect the earth that greatly." And that's it. I think it's arrogant for man to think that they can truly affect, that they can truly bring about the doomsday of the planet Earth, which has been around for supposedly billions and billions of years. And we've supposedly been here for millions of years. So
the caveat is that we probably don't have the power to influence the earth like that, but that doesn't give you the free pass to fucking drive your dumb fucking truck with black smoke spewing out of it,
Well, I'm not saying what that does truly affects the environment, but it affects the world around, the people and the world around you.
It affects me when I'm driving behind it. I don't want to see that shit,
Says the guy who literally said he liked the smell of car exhaust like 30 minutes ago. Apparently you do like it. You were probably in that line when that black smoke came out, just giving a good huff with a little catching in a brown paper bag and huffing it or something. So, but I think that's something that you're of a healthier mind when you're walking around a clean world in front of you. The space that you're in, is taken care of, and your community is able to show that they care about the world around them too. That has nothing to do with saving the environment. That just has to do with decency and respect as a human being for yourself and the world around you. But for some reason, that's out of vogue. And I think it's a really good point. I think it's something that the right should be attacking. They should be hammering that home. Say, instead of worrying about what's in space, in the ozone layer, that's barely proven or quantifiable and won't happen in our lifetimes or many, many lifetimes after that, why don't we start with what's at our feet? What's at our feet? Dude, right in front of us?
Can you imagine if after Trump disbanded the Paris Accords, if conservatives came out and showed everyone their alternative plan, which would clean up the plastic in the oceans? That would be fucking
It's a really
sick.
good idea. Instead, all they did was probably complain. Be like, "Oh, I don't think this is a good move from Trump for doing this."
Dude.
By the way, that was the last thing Bannon did before he left. So
there's a patch in the ocean which is like the size of Belgium, full of just like floating plastic shit. Imagine how the PR dub that would ensue if conservatives like cleaned that up, you know?
I think there should be citywide cleaning efforts. I think, and this might already, I mean, obviously it's up to local municipalities, but the federal government could go as far to declare a holiday and say this is a day where everyone is able to take off from school or their job if they get a slip from their municipality that says, I took off work today to clean the streets in front of my house or apartment. And obviously people would find, people with high ethical standards would actually go and do it. A lot of people obviously wouldn't, but if there were organizers to do, you could find and watch, because it'd be organized by maybe when the right is in control of that, whatever federal government agency would issue that. Watch leftists not want to participate. How amazing would that look then for the right? Yep. It's like, well, we tried to have a day for this, but all these people who are, the supposed truth seekers and protesters out there didn't want to do it. They didn't want to help. They didn't want to mobilize like they do for global warming. And it is so dumb. You want to talk about my favorite global warming boomer point is I am serious when I say this. I'm mostly serious. Wealthy people do buy coastal property. I do think that is a little bit of an indictment about where their heart is really at. So if the Obamas campaign against global warming, as if it's like a figure that you can't campaign against, like I'm gonna win against global warming, but they're campaigning, to combat global warming, and then they get a house on the water in Martha's Vineyard. I don't know. Even if you think that global warming is past your lifetime, your kids are going to inherit that house, and then it's eventually going to crumble. So someone's being disingenuous at some point, right? How seriously am I supposed to take them?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of on board the global warming thing. I just don't believe it's man-made. I think if you fast forward 100,000 years, the sea levels will be significantly higher than where they are now. It's just not anything to do with us, And I think as a society, we have to fucking plan for that shit and not just do some dumb fucking tax scheme.
Yes, but they think that it will happen in the next 40 years. And I've now been alive long enough for them to say within the next 10 years X will happen, and it has not. And I hate every time their weather occurs, they say it's global warming. Back when I was younger, and they'd always talk about El Nino. I'm sure that's still a thing, but I don't know why. I saw that on TV when I was 5 or 6, and everyone says, "Oh, this is the worst hurricane that's ever been recorded," and then supposedly gets worse and worse every year, which I don't think is true. We've had some pretty tame hurricane years. Then I don't know what it's so minute in the span of our nation's world's history that you can't make a declaration of it. You just can't. I don't see how you possibly could at this point in time, And I think, and this is me really. That's
actually a really funny point. Yeah, they want to keep touting like, oh, the universe was made 13 billion years ago, but then the chart shows like 3,000 years. It's like, oh, I thought the Earth had 4 billion years. Why don't you just scroll back that graph a bit further, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot more CO2 than here's something you might be able to look into, because I barely remember, and I might not even be explaining it correctly, but one of the metrics that they use, and I don't even know if that's the right term, but units of measurement maybe that they use for CO2 emission it's either parts per million or points per million. And I think if you're able to look at let's say it maybe be a pie chart or the fractional percentages of what composes these parts per million of CO2 emissions, humanity's contribution is microscopic, like sub 10%, sub 5% of every part per million of CO2 is attributable to human beings. The rest is nature existing on planet Earth,
Dude, I saw some crazy fucking quote that this volcano that erupted in Indonesia 2,000 years ago outputted more than like a fucking decade's worth of automobile exhaust.
Oh,
that's from one fucking volcano. Like, come on, dude.
Not only do I agree with that, but this is me really shooting from the hip. I remember I listened to some guy, and I don't know if this is a Catholic approved consensus, but I was listening to Catholic radio, shout out Relevant Radio, one time, and for some reason global warming was the topic at hand, and they brought on, I don't even think he was Catholic. He was just, a religious adjacent scientist, climate scientist maybe, and he was talking about, and I thought this was an interesting point, because the Earth may be warming, or because we're experiencing a period where we could be having hotter than usual temperatures, we've actually been having a renaissance in farming. Okay, so because of the weather and the way that it's been, we've been able to outgrow crops more than expected, and we've had a boom with production in the farming industry because we've had weather that can capitalize on it. And what people will say is, well, then it'll just get hotter and hotter until we're not capitalizing. Will it? Because that certainly hasn't been proven, and I'm just supposed to believe it is. And one last thing, just before I move on to it, and I think it could kind of put a period on it, but you can obviously have the final word. Unfortunately, it was a good point that was made on Glenn Beck's talk show by this guy Stu about 10 years ago that I listened to, and he said, climate scientists, you know, I forget what the group is called. It's called like something AA, IPCAA or something like that. It's like a climate division. Get together, pick your chart, use the Farmer's Almanac, use your hockey stick graph, use the ice cores, use whatever you want, okay? Just say, this is what we think the temperature of the Earth will be in 20 years. And it'll be a graph that's easy to follow. Stick to that. And we will see in 20 years if that is right or not. If it's not, then I'm sorry, like, the conversation's over. We can't keep having this over and over again. You know what I would like? I would like the left to find a new outlet for existential nihilism and just worldly human dread, because the right has religion, okay? in most cases. The right has a answer to the human soul. The left's answer to the human soul is global warming right now. It's something that encompasses all of humanity. It involves science. It involves, you know,
their answer
anti-humanity.
is that, oh, we're just stardust, bro. You know?
Yeah. So they got to think of something better than that. You know what? Why don't they say that? I don't know.
Also,
a psychopath will be a harbinger of the apocalypse.
You reminded me of something. I was watching the interview between Destiny and Jordan Peterson, and Destiny.
Sorry to hear that.
This Destiny brought up this really dumbass fucking point. He was trying to he's giving his version of like an ideal society, right? And he was saying like, yeah, we'll just use our climate models. Yeah, we'll plan a society and then input our climate models and then like work towards that. And then Jordan's like, okay, well, what's your time scale? And then Destiny's like, yeah, 100 years. And he's like, you want me to believe you want to plan society around 100-year time scale for your climate model when there's your 10, 20, and 15-year climate models so far have all been wrong, and you want us to trust you for 100 fucking years?
So even Jordan Peterson thought that basic point. Oh my gosh. I guess he does bring the bar back to where it needs to be in conversation, but it was the last good thing Sam Harris ever did was embarrass Jordan Peterson on stage. So actually it was the only good thing Sam Harris ever did. So I'm sorry, I can't stand Jordan Peterson. Yeah, when Sam Harris cornered him.
No, trust me. Sam took the fucking L on that one.
All I can remember is that exact moment, and I thought, I don't have to pay attention to Jordan Peterson ever again. He is just a man that went viral on a college campus. He was never smarter than that person. Look, by the way,
I'm not gonna say like Jordan Peterson is.
I know you're not a mega fan. Yeah.
But you should have really listened to what Sam was doing. He went through like the fucking Reddit rigmarole on that fucking debate stage. He brought up every single fucking Reddit atheist talking point. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You know?
Don't tell me he did why do bad thing happen. Don't tell me he did why do bad thing happen.
Yeah, and
because that's a favorite. That's a classic.
He brought up a variation is like, well, I'm not Christian, but I think I'm a good person. So how do you explain that? Like, I know a Muslim who's a good person. How do you explain that? It's like, okay,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
I didn't realize this is fucking like a 5th grade debate class, you know?
Yep. Just the concept of subjective morality in general. Just, they certainly love that one. So, all right. You got anything else on this subject? You really put a lot of sparks in my head. I kept thinking of stuff that I've heard over the years.
It's sort of tangential, but it's along like the same science kind of route. But dude, I think I'm coming around to the idea that Darwinian evolution might actually be fake.
I want you to hold that thought Because I think we could tackle. Well, what do you have to say? What do you have to say?
Yeah,
I feel like it's
used
too
to-
much right now, but go ahead.
I feel like, okay, so when I was researching, like, this is years ago, but I always came across this argument, like, you know, if you like these religious people would always say, I think microevolution is possible, but not macroevolution. And then the Reddit retort would always be, if you just have lots and lots of evolution stages, it just becomes macro over time. And that made logical sense to me at the time. But after hearing some more information, especially from this guy, Tyson and Moyer, that came on a couple podcasts, he explained like that doesn't actually logically follow that easily. Like you can't really just infer that, microevolution over time equals macro. So, and the way he explained it right is this: if you convert DNA to code, which it is, like DNA is like just like strings of code, like A, G, C, T, those like things in your DNA strand. Yes, your natural like the selection process for reproduction, it does allow for small variations and mutations in the code. But like, if you were to use the analogy of a computer code, if you were to slowly vary that code, so if you have a code for a function, right, that works perfectly at version 1.0, and then over time you slowly add variations to that code over time, so let's twist a bit there, change a bit there, the probability that you will arrive at a upgraded version of that versus just fucking up the code in like a year's time is so fucking slim. It's negligible. Like, yeah, you might get a variation there, but is it going to compound effectively stage over stage to a new like innovation? Probably not. Probably it's just going to fuck up the code, right?
It
That's
does
how I
seem
imagined
wishful. It does seem wishful to think, oh, you'll just get better and more adaptive over time, and then you'll also change into something else, and you'll start walking, and oh my goodness, it just keeps happening. How does it keep happening? Now I'm talking. Now I'm doing a stupid fucking podcast with my dumb friend from New Zealand. What's going on here? I was like, yeah, it is funny when you put it that way. It's just like, oh wow, it just so happened to work. My adaptive genetics just happened to X-Man
and they
me
say
into another species.
And they say that the mutation process is random, right? So it's like if you give a monkey with access to a typewriter that edits code and he does it like randomly, he's never gonna upgrade that software to something functional. He's just gonna fuck it up. Like, I don't know. Like, that makes sense to me,
No, actually, it'll just get smarter over time until it is able to type a novel. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
the argument isn't even that. The argument was like, yeah, this monkey that randomly mashes on the typewriter, eventually it's gonna upgrade the software into version 2.0.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was saying that sarcastically. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's really stupid. So I think we could definitely I think this is a bigger subject because I want to talk about dinosaurs and why I think they're the dumbest thing on the planet. So that was a good preview. Because I've actually never heard evolution discussed like that. At least that concept. To me, it just looks ridiculous. Even in first grade when they were talking about the missing link, I'm like, what are you talking? Like, what? What are you talking about? That's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and that requires belief as well, like just as much. So, and then they'll go and tell me that me thinking that cryptids and aliens are real are stupid. But here's my missing link. Oh, where is he at? I will find him someday. So, whatever.
I'm not fully on board with like this 6,000 years young Earth creationist group yet, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible that the Earth is billions of years old and humans were created by God. I think those aren't mutually exclusive,
I hate to say this, that some parts in the Bible are allegorical because I couldn't tell you which ones are and which ones are not. But people postulate that the book of Genesis is obviously telling a grander picture in a more digestible way. That, who are we to be able to perceive God's time span when creating the earth and the stars.
Like, why would a day? Yeah, why would a day
to
in
him
God's
a day
eyes?
could be a million years. You know what I mean? Exactly. So I'm gonna tie things back around here because it's something that I thought of. And we're on the back end, so I won't spend too much time on it. But this has to do with what we were talking about with global warming a little bit, but not really. Why is it? And I don't know if this is just coming from Fox News or it's every news source or it just seems to be a media darling phrase to say. Why do they like to always bring up gas prices? So they always say, oh, you're feeling that pain in the pump, aren't you? That's going to make you vote for someone else. Who are these people? Who are these people that are out there who not only are keeping a database and tracking how much their gas costs from week to week, but also acting on it in a political way? Who are these people?
I love the mental image of like some dumbass fucking boomer looking at the price. Wait, you telling me gas is $5? That's it. I'm voting for that's it.
Who's this ultra meticulous but also ignorant everyman who's tracking his gas prices that said, okay, so just put it this way. When I was younger and I drove a Mitsubishi Galant and beat it up and got into 10 plus accidents in it, that thing was a trooper. I think it costs about $25 to fill up my tank then. Okay, gas was around two something, maybe up close in $3. Now, you know, I got an SUV. It costs $40 to fill it up. So if you take inflation into account over that, maybe, I don't even know, 10 or 15 years, is it that big of a deal that I'm spending?
It costs $60 to fill up your SUV?
40. It doesn't even cost 60.
No, it's converting to New Zealand. New Zealand dollars. Dude, you guys have it so fucking easy. Holy shit.
Yeah, it depends on where you are in the country, and there's obviously some factors there. But
dude, in New
I've
Zealand,
never talked.
It's like double. It's like $80.
So I've always heard everyone talk about how everyone else is feeling the pain at the pump. I've never told myself or met another person who they themselves have said, yeah, but you know, I've just been having a lot of trouble paying for my gas for my car lately, so I'm gonna vote for someone else. Have you ever met any in your life who wasn't talking about someone else when they talked about gas prices, just as some sort of political point to make? I don't think I actually think that gas prices are pretty tame. I think they have been most of my life, and I understand that people say, yeah, well, it used to be 50 cents when I was younger. I was like, yeah, a lot of things were cheaper when you were younger. You could buy a house for $30 when you were younger. It was, you know, gas being 50 cents was kind of normal. So I don't understand where the talking point comes from, and I think it's just kind of time to ditch it. It could be something easy to say on the side, just politically expedient, and be like, oh yeah, and they're feeling the pain at the pump. It's an easy economic identifier that anyone can bring up in conversation or a politician can bring up, but is it happening? I don't understand.
I think, okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, but I think there is some credence to this, right? So if you think,
are you gonna talk about with trade or
sort
like
of
truckers?
So
yeah, I don't care about.
So not even the truckers, but like
that.
America is the number one by volume, the number one output producing country of oil in the world, right? And if a president enacts policies that make it easy, that do produce more oil or makes it easier for oil production to happen, and that reduces gas prices, you know, that's a dub that he can claim. You know, I don't mind that.
Yeah, I think yeah, that would be great. I would like my gas to be cheaper for sure,
yeah.
But I'm not basing my singular vote, the one of which I have every 4 years. Yeah. On whether my gas was $10 more or less than it was last time. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know why it's something that's constantly discussed. So
that's why I take the motorcycle pill, so you don't have to worry about gas ever again.
You take the Vespa on the highway.
Oh yeah, dude. You take the fucking scooter in Thailand pill, dude. $2 to fill up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's before you get into like, well, everything's moving to electric cars anyways, which by the way, it was a surprise to me that you pay for the electricity when you get your electric car charged. Did you know that?
What do you mean? Of course you pay for it if you plug it in your wall, right?
Well, Even when you go to a Tesla station too, you pay $10. I didn't
What?
know
You pay for that?
Yeah, you pay for it when you go there. I had no idea.
What the fuck is that?
Someone talked to me like I was an idiot. I was like, well, it's all free, so it doesn't matter. Like, you need to pay money for the station.
What's even the point then? What the fuck?
I know. Oh, I'm spending $5 to $10 on my gas, quote unquote, instead of 40. Ooh, glad I got this Tesla.
That's
this is
so
great.
ass,
Oops,
dude.
gotta
What the
charge
fuck?
it again in 2 hours. What are you talking about? And I'm not anti-electric car. I think electric cars are really cool. They're really fast. You know, if they made a good mid-range SUV one, I'd look into getting it. But it is baffling to me because I was getting gas the other day and I was like, no matter when I've been the poorest and richest I've ever been in my life since I could drive, it has not made a difference how much gas has been. I've always been able to get to point A to point B, and I've never been any richer or poorer because of it. Oh, I really needed that $15 from 15 years ago because gas was $2.50 a gallon instead of $3.50. So say something else. Say something like, I'll lower gas prices to improve trade. You know, instead of pretending that these guys, most conservative voters, also on the other hand, like to say that they drive giant SUVs or pickup trucks, but then complain about the gas prices too. Why don't we stop pretending that's a voting issue with them? Because it's obviously not. They need that gas to blow smoke into.
This is off topic. Well, not really, but like, remember that time 4 years ago, when Saudi Arabia was doing some weird shit with their oil. They had like an oil battle at like Race to the Bottom and shit. And oil was like so fucking cheap. Back then, it was like $1.50 for me, dude. That was a sick time. Yeah.
What? Do you remember when that was?
That was 2020, like 2019, I think, around there. 2020.
Yeah, I do remember
so
something
cheap,
like
dude.
that going on. And that was fun. I like to think of the things that were important to us then before you know what changed the world in 2020. I remember in around I don't know when it was. I think it was around 2012, maybe 2011. The biggest news story, the biggest United States shattering story was Charlie Sheen losing his mind. That was all anybody. That was the biggest problem facing our nation. I'm very concerned about Charlie Sheen. That was all we had to worry about, you know. So, and now it's not like that as much anymore.
I don't know why this popped up in my head, but like you mentioning Charlie Sheen in 2012, it made me think, dude, the 2008 Beijing Olympics, that was fucking sick. That was the only Olympics I actually cared about. You know, something about that. It was like such a cool period in my life. I loved it.
You're gonna cry like Jordan Peterson. And
no. It's just
I liked what they did.
I find it hard. I find it weird that I just didn't care about any Olympics after that one. You know.
Maybe you just got older and got uncaring. So I like the Olympics. I'm more of a Winter Olympics guy, but summer's not bad. Isn't that coming up in Paris? Or isn't that Paris?
I have no idea.
So
but I will be. Yeah.
Well, you won't be competing, that's for sure. So, actually, that kind of ties into what I was going to talk about last, just to cap us off here. And this is kind of a PSA. And I know you've been working out a little bit lately, and I kind of like to get on your case about what you eat. People don't seem to realize, and it seems like how you want to work out. Do you want to count carbs? Do you want to be a calorie guy, or are you a sodium guy? So I do calories in, calorie out. That works for me. I'm able to kind of stay around 1,600. I try and do sub 1,400 calories a day, which is possible when you work out and are a little bit mindful. But people think when you're trying to be health conscious, at least with your weight, you can't eat what you want. I think that's totally untrue from what I've been seeing. You can absolutely stay under 1,600 calories and eat fast food during the day, especially if you work out. If you look on the menu at places like Wendy's or McDonald's, even Muad'Dib forgive Chick-fil-A, you'll see that their chicken sandwiches aren't a lot of calories at all. A spicy chicken sandwich at Wendy's that filled me up was 490 calories. You could eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and still be under 1,500 calories for the day and lose weight. Hello? What brings the meal to 1,000 calories is the fries and they show their calories as if you were to get medium fries and a Coca-Cola. A Coca-Cola is 250 calories. You could just get a diet one and it's 0 and it does nothing to you. I don't understand how people are finding this stuff difficult. Or you could just straight up get a McDouble. A McDouble is only 500 calories, give or take. So you can have a McDouble for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, but the McDouble's too small for me. I want
it. Is. Yeah. No, I totally agree. That's what surprised me about the spicy chicken sandwich, though. When I got it, I said, I've been very well behaved lately. I'm going to get just a spicy chicken sandwich for lunch. And it was great. It was good content. It filled me up. I was good to go until dinner. I might have poked around, like a little pigeon between there before I got to dinner, but nothing exceeding 50, 60 calories. So I'm just saying out there for people, if you're on the fence, and this is my Bible to losing weight, it helped me, is avoid chips and fries like the plague and don't drink on weeknights. That's it. Or drink as little as possible. And if you throw working out in there, you're good to go. I love McDonald's. I will love McDonald's until my last breath. If I murdered someone and I were on death row, I would ask for a double quarter pounder meal.
If I have a burger, I need fries. If I
That's
have a burger without fries, it just feels incomplete.
Well,
I'd rather not have the burger at all, if that's the case.
That's why when we both step on the scale, different things happen. And that's all I'll say.
Yeah, step in the ring and see what the outcome is of that. Okay?
Oh, I'm sure you could just sit on me. Yeah, absolutely. That would be exactly how it would go. So get spicy chicken sandwich you know what? For fun, and I'll look it up for you guys. Let's see. Sandwich, Chick-fil-A. I'll even look it up at Chick-fil-A for you guys.
Also, for the civilized people listening, it's not a chicken sandwich, it's a chicken burger. But for some weird reason, Americans think that any meat that isn't beef just becomes a sandwich for some weird reason. So.
That's nice. The entire planet revolves around my country, and we call them chicken sandwiches. So I'm sorry, no one calls them whatever you're saying. So, a Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich is 420 calories. You can eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and not even hit 1,300 calories for the day. You'll lose weight. And if you work out in there, then your fat ass can have fries for one of those dinners. It can have it for 2. What are we doing here? How is anyone gaining weight? Is it really the Coca-Cola? Because it must be. Because that's empty calories, straight up. Or it's the drinking. It's got to be the Coca-Cola or the drinking. That's got to be what's making people fat.
I'll tell you what it is for me, right? I sleep at really stupid times. Like, I go to sleep on the reg at like 4 a.m. And if I do that, if I have dinner at like 6 or 7, dude, by the time it's like midnight or like 1 a.m., I'm getting really fucking hungry and I want another meal,
Well, I can't give you sound advice on it because you have the most disrupted sleep schedule of anyone I know. And I don't know if that's intentional or the way you are, but what does my friend call it? The Ubermensch sleep schedule or something like that?
Yeah.
Where you stay up for 4 hours and sleep for 4 hours and stay up. That's what you do, which is mind-boggling. So, but we'll wrap it up. I think this was, you know what I liked about this episode? It was themed. Okay.
Yeah.
When we're talking about evolution and climate change and
we're cracking
and
up the IQ
prices.
scale on this one.
Yeah. It happened to be the one where I was on prescription medication, but that's okay. I think I was able to keep up. So, but you got anything else in closing or what?
No, just reconsider your thoughts on evolution, people. It's not as simple as it seems.
Stay woke. Right?
Yeah.
All right. That was the Contrarian. Oh, go ahead.
Just one last. Now that a certain someone isn't here for the time being, I feel like it would be cool to have a space themed episode, or like something about astronomy and like the cosmos and all that shit. I would like to have that kind of episode.
That would be all you, but I think I could keep up. What's painful? It's funny. I actually did like taking the Stephen Hawking pill after. God forbid the guy goes to an island and relaxes a little bit. You got to dig it in after he dies. He can't even do anything to these girls. He's just sitting there. So if anything, they're doing it to him. No, okay, whatever. I'll let that one go. I don't think I thought that one all the way through. But what I am saying is that I did like that someone said Stephen Hawking probably didn't think of anything he was saying. It was just a mouthpiece, and he should have been dead a long time ago, which I was like, I didn't really think about it that way. He could barely talk. He was in constant pain all the time, and I'm supposed to believe he was writing these illustrated books about advanced physics.
I believe it. If you're trapped in that body, what else can you do except like think of cool shit in your mind? You know, you can't
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one thing you can go and do.
Yeah, notice I loved what his extracurricular activities into cool shit. But yeah, I was just saying, like, you know, when the Pink Boys podcast was happening, me, you, and Ari had this fucking stupid debate about like asteroids or like how like black holes or something, and the way that both of you approached that during then, it really like made me so fucking angry because you guys were arguing bad faith. So I want to do a proper like space episode.
So what I was going to say was Stephen Hawking wrote a book called Universe in a Nutshell. And I think it's a, I don't want to say comprehensive, but a very digestible book on the universe and how it works and how time is time is a space. It explains space-time really well in a way that I think is usually difficult to understand. So Universe in a Nutshell taught me a lot of what I already forgot about the universe. And also to follow up on your saying, what you were saying, you were posing a stupid logical argument of why aliens exist, and it was
not
thing
that
I've
one.
ever heard.
It wasn't the aliens episode. It was
okay, because that was stupid. Whatever the other thing was, you were probably right. I just wanted to argue.
You were fine, but dude, I was talking about how nuclear fusion works, and the Ari was like, "No, that's not how it works." And see some dumb fucking point. I'm like, "Oh my god, dude, I don't want to react to that, but I should." Just the confidence with which he was wrong, it pissed me off so much.
I will say Ari does have a bit of vindication because he said that a project that he was working on was going to have nuclear powered chat GPT, and there happened to be a PhD computer science graduate in the chat when he said that, and he was like, what are you talking about? Does this guy know anything about what he's talking about? And then, Ari kind of withdrew a little bit after that. But an article did come out a month or two ago about how there may need to be nuclear power tethered to advanced chat GPT models for processing power. And he's like, see, I told you, blah, blah, blah. So he got, even the universe throws him a bone from time to time, believe it or not. So it can happen to any of us. It's funny stuff. But yep, I'm ready to wrap up. Yeah, maybe we'll do a space episode. I think we need to flesh out evolution first. So maybe that'll be coming down the pipe next. You know what we need to do, actually? Especially since it doesn't feel like election season, but it is. We need to just have a pre-election overview. That, how we got here, how we think it'll play out in November. I'm sure we'll have a few arguments, but we have to do an election special for sure.
We should. But yeah, not now. I'm thinking in maybe 2 months' time because it feels so dead now. No one's even talking about the election.
Yeah, it needs to rev up a little bit. Yeah. I think everyone's kind of moving the pieces a little bit still. All right, cool. Good stuff. Well, I'll talk to you in a little bit, my little Mr. Science Man. Until then, this is the Contrarian Hour. I'll talk to you guys next time.